When you're triggered, it's one of the most valuable gifts. So when you're triggered, it can often feel really crappy because you're usually angry, you're blaming someone, and it's really just a very heightened emotional response. So it might be something very small that it causes you to have this response, and even later you might ask yourself, like, why is this emotional response so huge when it was just that little comment or that question, or even that person didn't even talk to me and I just wanted to slap them. So triggering, although feeling really bad, can be one of your most valuable gifts. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 takeaways that can help you recognize when you're being triggered and how to shift it into a powerful tool. My name is Cheong. I catalyze your shift from the ordinary to the exhilaration of the quantum by giving you the tools to change your frequency resonance so that the life you live matches the life you dream of. Okay, let's get to it. Takeaway number 1. Blame is your secret signal. So I know that might sound weird because you're thinking to yourself, it's obviously their fault. You know, someone has done something terrible to you. You're all pissed off. You're indignant. You feel righteous, like, I'm right, you're wrong. So how is blame really a secret signal? Because it's clearly not anything to do with you. I have a client, and let's just call her Sally. And she's about 82 now. And the way that Sally used to relate to her friends is they would be really negative about what was happening in their lives. So someone would talk about this terrible thing that happened to them, and the others would commiserate, and then someone would share about this other horrible thing that happened. And one of the things they would do in this negativity is that they would blame others. So Sally had a friend named Leah, and Leah had just sold her condo. And the thing about this sale that was sort of spectacular was that the building that the condo was in had construction issues. So for a couple of years, no one could buy into the buildings because the bank wouldn't lend on it. So the fact that she was able to weather the storm of that period when the banks wouldn't lend, and now was able to sell her condo for a price that was over asking, was a mini miracle. The thing that was getting Leah all riled up, though, was that she had told her realtor about an issue with the stove, but the realtor had forgotten to disclose it to the buyer. So lo and behold, the buyer moves in, tries to make themselves dinner, and the stove doesn't start. So now, understandably, the buyer's pissed off and says, hey, why didn't anyone disclose this to me? But the realtor's like, duh, I forgot to mention it to you. And the seller had told me. And now the agent is asking Leah, hey, you should pay them. But Leah's like, I told you all this. Why didn't you tell her? I don't want to have to pay for it. You should. So now Leah, Sally, and all their friends are talking about how terrible the realtor is and how they shouldn't have forgotten. And there's a lot of blame party happening. But the thing is, that stove issue was only a couple $100, and she just made a few $100,000, and everybody was getting all verklempt. But the awesome thing is that Sally had been doing the work that I teach. And because she did, she had this space to recognize, wait a minute here, we're going into all this blame when we have this opportunity to celebrate. And gee, we tend to blame a lot. And wouldn't life be better if instead of getting sucked into that blame party, we could celebrate instead? But it's really easy for us to feel like it's someone else's fault when really it's something within us that is reactive to that person in the first place. Because the thing is, we don't all have the same trigger. I don't know if you noticed this, like what triggers you and what triggers someone else is totally different. It's your reactivity. You're the one who's reacting to whatever it is that that person said or did in the like, how dare you, or you should have known better, or whatever it is that you're thinking. But if they said that very same thing or did that very same thing to someone else, even someone that you're close to, they may not have that same reaction. In fact, they probably wouldn't, or at least not to the same intensity that you just did. So the thing is, when you go into like, it's your fault, it's a really good indicator that, wait a minute, I'm the one who's reactive here. Maybe it's something within me that I need to shift in order for me to not be so reactive next time. Now, sometimes things that are terrible happen to us that aren't our fault. So if you had a trauma when you were a child, like someone sexually abused you, or there's a situation happened that you couldn't control, and now, you were just too small to be able to deal with it, that wasn't your fault, right? And so you could easily say, okay, well, given what you just said, and now I'm blaming someone else, that's really mine. So here's the thing. That thing did happen to you. It was terrible. And the wonderful thing is you have the choice now as an empowered adult to shift it. So if you notice that you're triggered and you think to yourself, geez, that has something to do with whatever happened to me when I was 5 or when I was 6 or whenever that horrible thing happened to you, to say, okay, it is linked to that, but I no longer want to give that person power over me. I no longer want to be this reactive because of them. I choose to have a different response. So by looking at yourself and your reactivity, even if it's blame to someone when you didn't have the power to shift things, it can still be an incredibly powerful tool for you to be like, wait, I'm still very oversensitive here. It's something within me that I need to release, a distortion pattern that I need to clear so I can be free of this reactivity and free of them so I don't have to carry this with me anymore. So how do you discern when something is someone else's doing or if it's your overreactivity that is causing the situation to feel so intense to you? So I'm going to back up a little bit. Here's the thing. You may have heard of this idea that you are co-creating your reality. You can be doing it either consciously or you can do it unconsciously. So whether you're aware of it or not, you're still doing it. So here you are broadcasting out the signal into the universe of what it is that you want to experience. But between you and the universe, there's all this static that I call distortion patterns that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. But what happens is the universe receives that garbled signal and returns to you relationships, circumstances, experiences that reflect that garbled distortion. But here's the good thing. You can clear that garbled static so that you have a different experience. It's really easy to blame. It's such a human response. It's way easier to say it's someone else's fault than to look within and to say, okay, well, what is it within me that's overreactive here? What's the pain that's causing that? It's kind of like if you've ever had a little cactus spine in your finger, and you can't really see it very well, so you can't pull it out. But then the next time you put your hand in your pocket, it rubs a little bit and you're like, ow, but you can't actually see it to take it out. The thing is, you can start to clarify all that static that I mentioned before, so that spine becomes less and less and it doesn't hurt so much. So it's not about saying that blaming is like a terrible thing and that you should never blame because that's bad. You're still being human, but it's to have that space to be like, okay, wow, I just blamed someone there. Geez, maybe there's something within me that I need to look at. Takeaway number 2, the root of being triggered begins within you, which is awesome because it means you can change it. I have a client named Kathy who had a lot of distortion around intimate partnership. She always felt that she wasn't really worthy of the partnership and that she wasn't quite enough. So she was always pleasing or trying to please the men that she was with. And she had a lot of insecurity about them and other women because what happened with her past relationships is the guy would end up cheating on her. So fast forward a few years, and she's noticing, because she's been doing frequency work, that every time she's at a party with a guy, even if she's not dating him yet, even if she's just interested in him, and there's a woman that comes to talk to the two of them, she gets really upset. And often she would go have revenge sex with some person that she didn't know to show them. But the thing is, the guy and the other woman wouldn't even notice that she was gone, and Kathy would end up waking up the next morning not feeling that great about herself. So what's cool is, after doing frequency work, when she would go to a party with a male friend, she noticed that, wait, I'm getting kind of triggered when this woman's coming up to talk to the two of us. But that seems a little bit weird, because who cares if they're getting together and flirting? I'm just friends with this guy. But she would notice that she was getting triggered. But by releasing the distortion pattern, it gave her the space to be like, okay, wait a minute. I'm being triggered here. Instead of going to have revenge sex, I'm going to go take a walk. And then when she would go for her walk, she would come back and communicate with her friend. Like, hey, I'm kind of uncomfortable because I have this thing that happens and I'm not really upset with you, but I just have this response that's a little overreactive. So the friend now feels like, okay, I understand what's happening. They become closer as a result, and she doesn't go into this really destructive behavioral pattern. So the wonderful thing about frequency work is that when you are triggered, you can start to have space from it and start to examine what is it that's really causing me to be triggered in the first place. So how does the triggering start within you? Well, I see or perceive at the level of frequency, and I can tell you that it's caused by something I call distortion patterns. So what does it mean to perceive at the level of frequency? Well, everything is vibrating. Now, scientists have been talking about this for decades now, and the rate of vibration is what dictates the form of the thing. So meaning, if you take something really physical like water, and the molecular vibration is high, it's steam. And when that molecular vibration slows down, it becomes liquid water. And when that slows down even more, it becomes ice or density or form. So if you extrapolate that idea all the way out to consciousness or the oneness, in order for there to be something other than the one, there needs to be a drop in resonance. So when that resonance drops, it creates frequencies. And when that resonance or vibrational level drops some more, it creates what we talk about as energy. And when it slows down even more, it becomes physical form or matter. So I work at the level of frequency, which is where the distortion patterns originate or where the root of your problem is. So what is a distortion pattern? Okay, so when you come into embodiment, when you drop in resonance from being infinite, indestructible consciousness into form, you have to drop in frequency resonance because, this thing is a lot denser than you as consciousness. What it looks like to me is a sphere of pure source energy that vibrates at a very specific rate. Now, that specific rate of vibration is what makes you, you, and me. Now, that sphere of pure source energy, when it drops in vibration into embodiment, there are these what look like layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of duct tape that form around the sphere. Now, there's nothing wrong with the sphere, but because of all the heaviness of all the duct tape, the vibrational pattern of the sphere slows down because of all of that heaviness. So the sphere forgets that it's surrounded by pure source energy in all directions around it. So what are those layers of duct tape? Well, those layers of duct tape are what I call your distortion patterns. And your distortion patterns are caused by things like your lineage or what your ancestors experienced, and that's what the field of epigenetics is. It's proving that what your grandparents and your great-grandparents experienced very much affects how your genes express and what choices you make. You have also your cultural distortion patterns, your religious distortion patterns, your past lives. That's a short list of the things that cause your distortion patterns. The thing is, when you're triggered, your distortion patterns in that particular area get really, really loud. Again, it's like that invisible spine of the cactus agitating you in the little pad of your finger every time you jam your hand into your pocket. It's exactly like that. So when you're triggered, it's an indication that you have a lot of distortion patterns in that specific area. So you can't really stop yourself from being triggered. I mean, you're going to be reactive in some way. You are human. What happens, though, is when you start to release your distortion patterns, you have space from the triggering, meaning you notice when it's happening and it's not so intense for you. The thing, though, to remember is that when you're triggered is that it's important to come into your center, to have a sense of like, okay, here I am, aware of myself in the present moment of linear time. I can take a breath here. I know that I'm being triggered, but really that's an emotional thing, and I'm the one who has authority in my space. But until you learn to come into your center, it's really difficult to not get pulled right into being triggered, into the emotionality, the anger, the blame, the indignance. If you'd like to learn how to come into your center so you're not as triggered and you can have more space between you and the emotionality of it, then click on the link in the description below for my free centering group frequency calibration. Takeaway number 3, Triggering is not only a gift, it's also an invitation. So what do I mean by that? I mean, an invitation to what exactly? It's not like it's a party or anything. The thing is, triggering is an invitation for you to notice what it is that you have distortion around. You know, humans are funny. When we're super comfortable, we're just like hanging out and everything's kind of blissful, there's no real impetus to change because you're in comfort. It's only when we're usually uncomfortable, and sometimes for some of us in pain, that we notice, oh wait, there's that thing that I should be paying attention to, and maybe I should take notice of what's happening within me. So triggering is this invitation to be aware of, wait, there's a pattern that happens here around this kind of situation or this type of person that's probably an indication of something within me that needs to change. Why do you want to look within anyway if it's uncomfortable? Well, the reason you want to look within is because it gives you the opportunity to release those distortion patterns that I was talking about just a bit ago. And when you release those distortion patterns and the heaviness of them, your frequency resonance starts to rise. And when your frequency resonance starts to rise, everything in your life starts to reorganize around it. So the opportunities that are available to you, or that you even notice, how much abundance you experience, how much synchronicity, how much magic, how you feel, what your life looks like, all of that changes based on your frequency resonance, because your physical life is a reflection of how high your frequency resonance is. The awesome thing about your frequency resonance rising is how you are triggered will change, meaning at the beginning, it might be something you just notice, like our friend Kathy, who noticed, oh my God, I'm going into this destructive pattern of having revenge sex. And then it becomes less, so you have more space around it, and you might just feel sort of like upset or angry inside, and then be like, okay, well, I need to look at that. Or it might be that you actually don't really notice it because it's more subtle, because it's more internal. It's less like aggressive with you, but you realize, wait a minute, I realize now that I'm being triggered because I don't feel loved, or whatever it is for you. So it becomes more and more subtle as your frequency resonance rises, but it still acts as this incredible opportunity to notice what it is that you need to clear. And the amazing thing, you can release the trigger altogether when you release the distortion pattern because there's nothing left to agitate. So I have so many emails from so many people who are like, you know what? I just met this person who used to trigger the crap out of me. And I just actually spent the entire holiday season with them playing cards, and it was actually pleasant. So when you release your distortion patterns, it takes out that tiny invisible spine of that cactus out of your finger. And often when you release that distortion pattern, what used to trigger you doesn't anymore. One of the things that tons of people get triggered by is not having enough, or said differently, scarcity. Did you know that scarcity itself is a distortion pattern? If you want to learn about where scarcity comes from and how to begin to shift it, click on my next video. See you inside.